Hello? Hello! Hello to peoples. It is I, Martha Beck. Hello. They've changed all my Facebook all around while I was gone. So I don't know where you are. But I see myself and it says I'm live. So I'm kind of going to assume that you're there, although I do not see your usual names. Oh, there you come on. Look, Denise is coming and oh, okay. I'm getting help. I think this is all I need. It's just ooh. Sorry guys, they've changed everything since my foot was it's I had surgery not because I hurt my foot, but because the surgeon went in to hurt my foot. No, he went to help my foot and it's much better. It feels like ooh, you don't want to know. But they say it's going to be much better later. So I'm very, very happy. And I'm so glad to be seeing you again. It's so lovely. I thought at first it wouldn't work, like it had been too long. But here you are. And here I am. Hi, Caitlin. Hi, Julianne. Hi, Ellen and Alexa and Brett. Hi, Ellen and Marcia. Ah, I love you guys. So, yeah. I've been gone 2 weeks. How have you guys been? Diane, Tracy, Kelly? I'm waiting for that magical 100-person mark because while I was gone, people drifted off and found other things to do with their lives. Becky and Amna and Marianne, Catherine, yay! 99. Oh no, that's 90. Sorry, we're just gonna have to wait. Hi, Jane and Amy. Hi, Marcia and Laura and Kathy again. I missed you too. It still says 90, but I don't believe it. I think it's just lying to me about numbers now. Um, I'm just going to start. Hi, guys. Hello. This is the Gathering Room with Martha Beck, and I'm coming at you from a whole new spot in my room because I just had surgery on my foot. The surgeon went in and he did saw the bone of my tiny toe, not the toe bone, but the one above it, the metatarsal. He did saw it in pieces, and then he pinned it to the bone next to it with a chevron. That's why the bed is shaky. So if it shakes a little, I'm very sorry. But I'm on a bed with my foot up, and have been that way for almost 3 weeks now. It's kind of a great way to spend the summer, you guys. I mean, just to be able to say, no, no, I can't. Would you please catch me? It's been awesome. So, thank you, Paul, for saying mine shows 105. Yes, I'm up to 125. So I thought today I would talk to you guys about healing because it's something we all need in our hearts, our bodies, our souls, and sometimes our minds. And I've been doing a bunch of it up here. I mean, when you go in for orthopedic surgery, I've had other surgeries and they were soft tissue and they were no fun. But soft tissue, as you know, if you've ever had a cut, heals in about 2 weeks if it's kept well. Bone takes a lot longer, as you know, if you've ever broken anything. And so, yeah, when they go in and they basically do carpentry in there, like with all your little bells and whistles. And the pain level is quite different. They did tell me it would be, and they were right. So I had more incentive to focus on healing over the last 2 weeks than I've had for a long time, actually. And I hope this doesn't sound gross, but I was kind of looking forward to it, and I kind of loved it it was not fun. I'm just going to say it was seriously the opposite of fun. But from the moment I started coming out of the anesthesia, before I could lift my head or even open my eyes, I was thinking, okay, what's going on in my body? Find the places. And I could feel that my body was really tight from the trauma of being chopped up because it knows, even if you don't consciously know, the body still records some of that trauma. So I was like, where it was tight, I would go in and relax it. Where it was tight, I'd go in and relax it. And I had to go up and down my body. My foot was still numb from the surgery. And when it unnumbed, I was doing a meditation, and you should try this if you are in physical pain. You may have heard me mention a guy named Shinzen Young, Shinzen or Zen, Young, just like young man. And he has this great audio CD called Breaking Through Pain, and he takes you through several meditations about pain. And it's all about, and what he claims, and I love this, and I started listening to his stuff at night when my foot was hurting a lot. And he said, you will find that if you can handle pain in a skillful way, it can become nothing other than all your ego defenses and all your what separates you from the source. It's just grinding it down. So they're like, it's like you're full of rocks. You've got all these blocks between yourself and the divine. And he said physical pain, if you go into it in a certain way, starts to grind itself down and become more like sand. He also makes the comparison, ice turning to water and becoming fluid. And so the first 2 days, I got to tell you, I couldn't do it. I would go through my whole body, and then I'd get to the lower part of my calf, and my mind would just go no and run like a horse. Just, no, no, and I just wasn't brave enough to go into it. I could feel that my foot was confused as well, and but by the third day, I started to be able to do what he was saying, which is to find map the pain exactly by find the shape of it, and find the texture of it and everything. And I have now what I call the electric sock, because it's like my whole foot is encased in a thick sock. And inside this sock, that is from inside my foot and out to about this far outside my foot, it's just constant lightning. Boom! It's like a thunderstorm in there. And it's really interesting. And sure enough, as I started to map it, and as I started, he says, and he's so gentle, like he's always a great guy, but he's so kind on this because he knows he's dealing with you when you're hurting. And he just gently talks you into like find the edges of it, see if you can soften them. And gradually you go into it. And it's weird. Within like a week, it was hurting like the blazes. But if I could sit and meditate with it, it actually became fascinating and not suffering. So I've always wondered that, the thing about, like, I wrote this book that says integrity is the end of all psychological suffering. And pain does not necessarily equate to suffering. And I was in quite a lot of pain, especially because I didn't take my painkillers for a couple of days because I had to teach a class, prepare it and teach it. And the pain levels were really, really high. And I was not suffering. I was shaking, I was sweating, I was the whole thing, but I was not suffering. So I wanted to tell you, first of all, that there's magic in your own mind to go in and deal with physical pain, as well as emotional and spiritual and psychological pain. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that when you do that, you join what Shinzen Young says over and over in this video is pain is nature calling to you. It is nature calling to you to come into your body in a new way, in a fresh way, in an unbiased way. You're too tired to hold up your old ideas. You're too tired and you're hurting too much to like stamp your cultural bias onto everything. You just have to be with what is. And then to find the zone where there's no suffering means you come into presence. And it can be an enlightening experience. So as you know, if you've read that book of mine, or if you've ever met me, I believe that if you do something in your own life, it immediately begins to fractal or reflect itself in the world around you. So as I got to the point where I was able to master some of my own, to handle the pain in a way that I felt that stopped me from suffering, made me feel like I was in the presence of the divine, little magical things started happening because there was a magic in the mind in the way it was healing. And one of the most magical things was my new good friend and yours, Jill Bolte Taylor, who was on the podcast a little while ago. Read her new book, Whole Brain Living. It's amazing. Well, she called me while I was recuperating, and we were talking about my foot. And she said, because this is a woman who had a massive stroke that took out almost all her left hemisphere, and she had to rebuild her brain, but she's a neuroanatomist. She's an whole body anatomist. So she said, what did they do to you in the surgery? So I told her, and she said, oh, your brain needs to repattern after your foot. It won't know that there are two bones fused together. It will be confused. And your brain needs to repattern to your body. And she said, I use this thing called the Anat Baniel, Anatbaniel. Anat Baniel, who's a woman who helps people heal injuries and deal with all kinds of things, really. Cerebral palsy, stuff like that, by repatterning the brain through these interesting exercises. So Jill put me on to her, and I started doing those. But in the meantime, Jill said, "So, would you just tell me, like, think about your brain and send your energy down, the electrical energy, not woo woo, it's electricity, send it down your right leg, the one that isn't injured." And I was like, "I never told you which leg was injured." But she was like, "I mean, which leg is hurt?" And I was like, "It is the left one." She's like, "Okay. How did I know?" And I was like, "You knew because you were feeling it. Like I could, because I could feel her." I know. I don't want to. She is a scientist. Okay. Nevertheless, when she started focusing on my leg, I felt something. And she said, "Send all your energy out down your right leg and out through the toes, and now see if you can light a little light bulb with each of your toes in your mind." And I was like, "Yeah, it's happening." And she's like, "Okay, now go down your left one." And it was so much harder. And oh my God, the electrical storm it started in my foot was incredible. But I was seeing how directing the electrical energy of my nervous system into my foot was something I had control of to some extent. And I was steering all that electricity in. And she said, "Go into the big toe first. That's the one that's not hurt." So, all of y'all who are trying to fix something in your life, I swear, follow it with your energy. This is what I've been finding out in the physical body, but it works for your whole life. So, she had me go into my toes and then into the second toe and then into the third. And then she said, "Now let's pull back from the ones that are really hurting, and she said, put one hand on each side of your foot and offer it as much love as you would give to a wounded baby." And she said, "Do that a dozen times a day. If you have any pain at all, this strategy," I've used similar things for my whole life, and I've had a lot of physical problems. So I really suggest that you do it. And if you have emotional pain, like, do it with your own heart. Like, hold your own chest and hug yourself and give yourself that kind of, like, physically hug yourself and direct energy toward whatever's hurting in you. And then she told me to read a book by a guy named Jeffrey Rediger. He's a Harvard psychiatrist, and he wrote a book called Cured, which I think, I mean, it's great for anybody to read. And it's about the fact that almost every physician at some point sees somebody heal in a way they shouldn't be healing. It's not statistically common enough for people to do studies on it. And if doctors wrote about it, they'd get drummed out of the field. But he says when he goes to conferences and he talks to doctors and says how many people have seen like a miraculous seeming recovery, pretty much all the hands go up. And so he set out to study it. And the result was this book called Cured, about people who are absolutely by the book, like tested, confirmed, going to die. And it turned around. And he said, it's not that you have to do certain things and then it'll work for you. We don't know why. It works for some people and others, and it's very rare. But it happens. It really does happen. And over 17 years, he's gone through. The reason that Jill knew about his book was he called her and asked her, "How did you heal your brain?" So he's talked to many, many, many people who've undergone these miraculous healings. And he wrote a book about it, and it's really interesting because he starts with the simple stuff, like, what did these people do? What can we do to create magical healing in our lives? The first thing I learned from Shinzen Young was to gently, gently, gently explore with your mind and your energy, your consciousness, this material form. There's a part of it where he says, just become the space inside your cells instead of the matter, because the space isn't hurting, and most of your atoms are made of space. Shinzen Young is also a physicist. So I learned a lot from that, and then I learned a lot from Jill telling me how to use my brain to fix another part of my nervous system that's further away than my head, but is still part of the nervous system. And then I learned a lot from this book. And he starts with, well, most of these people, when they got a terminal diagnosis, a lot of them changed the way they were eating so that they ate things that were more fresh and more wholesome, and stopped eating as many processed foods. Different people did things. Some people did ketogenic, some people did vegan, but they all kind of changed what they ate. Okay, all right. Then they changed like their stress levels, and I'm like, okay, all right, this is not magic. And then he gets to the part where he's like, and then there's a little something that happens where they let go of their personalities. And he refers to it, as many psychiatrists do, as the DMN, or default mode network of the brain. So the default mode network is your personality. It's how you customarily respond to everything from waking up in the morning to having an argument to driving to work, walking the dog, thinking, whatever. And we all get in distinct patterns and we don't usually disrupt them. But the threat of death, when people were really facing it and when they really surrendered to it, the default mode network was disrupted. So it's not just a threat of death that can do this. And he goes through a list of other things, and it's the awakening experience. And he says this is the default mode network is just another term for what in Asia is called ego. And the disruption of that network is another term for what in Asia is called the awakening process. So pain, I've come out of this, and the next time I'm in pain, I will forswear this. I do not want to hear that pain is good for me. It is not. I don't want you in pain. I want you to take all the painkillers your doctor gives you. I don't want you to be in pain. But if you have to be in pain, it can be another gateway into magic. If you use it lovingly and you use it consciously and skillfully. It's all about consciousness and compassion. And then, so these people, they basically broke their personalities. They died. The person that was them before, as a personality, died. This is exactly what Anita Moorjani says about her near-death experience from cancer. She died of cancer. She gave into it. She was gone. Then she had a near-death experience, met her deceased father, who said, go back, you still have so much more to do. And she woke up, and 9 days later, she was cancer-free. So that's one of those weird freak occurrences. And she did it by becoming her true self. She went from a very shy, shrinking, people-pleasing person to someone who lives right out loud. And that's what she says you have to do. You have to live, to be yourself as if your life depended on it, because it does. That's what she says. And Jeffrey Rediger's research seems to bear it out. And I am here to tell you that, yeah, use your pain to break your default mode network. Use your pain to say, I'm going to die to this life and see what's on the other side. I'm going to investigate what it's like when I stop resisting pain and accept it, and my suffering goes away. Not only does it make sense in the near term because it really helps you deal with the pain you're in, but it also is that one more step, one more door opening. I feel like I've been in a meditation retreat. I am so freaking grateful for this experience. And also, I hate pain and never want to feel it ever again. So now I'm going to go to some questions. Oh, sorry, jolted the camera. Kira says, I've been playing with this dynamic in reverse lately, speaking to my soul before an event takes place and preparing her, mainly in meditation, explaining what's about to take place to the body, people she'll be interacting with. And it seems, it says see more, but okay. And it seems, oh gosh, here we go. And it seems, hold the phone. It seems to be really helping my life run much more smoothly and magically. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this. Thank you very much. Yes, sorry, that was discombobulating to my newly reorienting brain. Yeah, if you know what's going to happen, I went into this surgery really apprehensive. I didn't know what was going to happen, and it was scaring me. And what I would do differently if I were to do it again is to find out exactly, go online and like look at what people say when they've had this procedure. That's the beauty of online. You can go and find it, and what kind of pain they felt and whether it worked. I frankly was too scared. I didn't want to know. I wanted to go in it, but I was very apprehensive. And I think preparing yourself for it is a great idea if you're a brave person. Me, I get perseverating about, I don't want that to happen to me, and I brace. So try it, preparing yourself. If it's working for Marcia, no, that was not Marcia. That was someone else. Ugh, Kira, I'm a mess today, but that's all right. I've got like nails in my foot holding it together, which they have to take out in a while. Yeah, but you know what? I don't think I would prep for it. There's a fine line between perseverating about the future and getting ready for what's happening. And if you're a preparing kind of person, then get yourself prepared. But I'm the kind of person, they're called quick starts, who I'm sure I will die right after saying the words, I'm just going to do it. How bad can it be? Yeah. So if you're the kind of person who does research, then it will help. And if you're not, then maybe just go. So Marcia says, on Friday, I went to the dentist for a deep cleaning. She was working in my mouth for over an hour, drilling, digging, and scraping. I was suffering, and my tongue was my defense. I could not meditate nor find anything to deliver me from the suffering. She wants me back in 3 months. Anything you can suggest to prepare me? I had a similar experience, Marcia, and I couldn't control my breathing. They were actually blocking my breathing. And that was my go-to meditation thing, right? Breathing in, breathing out. It's the mantra that always pulls me out of the worst places. I'm like, there's an earthquake and everything's on fire. What do I do? Oh, breathing in, breathing out. And that brings me right down. But I couldn't because they were stopping my breath. And that was the ultimate panic. And so what I started to do was like tapping my hands alternately and just going tap, 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 tap. And it was a rhythmic, methodical thing. And also just telling myself, it's fine, it's okay. Like finding that part of myself that was all right. That part of myself is more highly developed since I've been meditating, so I can access it better. But not to be able to do it with breathing was really scary. And it's really interesting how we're giving experiences to up our game. Like there's another book I've read while I've been laid up. It's called The Art of Learning by Josh Waitzkin. He was world master, grandmaster chess champion by the time he was like, I don't know, no years old. He was a huge chess prodigy. They made a movie about him. Then he quit competitive chess and became a martial artist and became world champion in his martial art. And he talks about how everything that happens to him was a way to up his game. Like he was doing karate in a match, like a national championship or something, and the other guy broke his hand. And Josh Waitzkin put his right hand, which is right-handed, he put it behind his back, and he said he just went into a state of deep flow because he'd done so much practice and he was so focused, and he meditated, and he was able to win the fight with one hand because everything slowed way down, and he could see the other guy's plan in advance, and he knew he could move in real time. It was like the Matrix, right? So that's something I wanted to tell you guys, that you can always use something even worse to learn even more. And I know that sounds awful, but it's an interesting option when you seem out of options for making things better. It's that whole thing of if you can't turn down the suffering, turn up your willingness to suffer, and paradoxically, the suffering gets less. So Judith says, thank you, Marcia, I've found some pain so overwhelming that my brain does not work, and other pain, tooth pain, just clamoring for attention. How would one deal with the difference? This is so unpleasant sounding. Talking about my own is one thing. Hearing about it going on with you guys is like, oh no. Yeah, it can get to the point where your brain doesn't work. And I've had that with emotional pain as well, probably more than physical pain, where it's just blinding. And there are two virtues with that. Either it goes quickly or it lasts a long time. If it goes quickly, it's like, well, that's over. If it lasts a long time, your brain's going to come trickling back. If you're really focused on living in your body and not in your head, it's very, very helpful. I just think of myself as a wounded animal, and wounded animals get very still. They get very peaceful. They told me I would have to stay in bed with my foot above my head for at least 2 weeks, and I did. Foot above head. And I thought, that is going to feel so confining and boring. I didn't feel confined at all because my entire body was saying, lie here with your foot up. That's all you want to do. Like, it was the best thing that could have happened to me to be in that position. And lying there, hour after hour, my brain came back, and I had to go into the pain, and I had to learn to tolerate it. And I'm certainly not saying, this was surgical pain, was treated with pain medication. I'm not saying this was anything compared with what so many other people go through. I just lay there thinking, God help anyone who breaks a bone out in the wilderness. But it really does, the brain really does volunteer itself to help do the magic of healing. What Jill told me, she said, everything wants to heal. Everything is built to heal. So she had a really bad shoulder injury long after she recovered from her stroke. And after her surgery, the doctor said, it's a mess. We should have replaced the shoulder and blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, he's a brilliant surgeon, but I don't think he totally understood what the brain can heal, what the neural network of the body is capable of healing. And so she went at it with what she knew, and within a year she had full functionality in that shoulder, which was truly a mess. So yeah, I just want to reiterate the magic. So first, I have a great meditation magic that I use. Second, a friend I've just made happens to call and right before my surgery and after the surgery to ask me what's going on and then help me in a way that felt truly magical. And she was paddleboarding when she was on the call with me, and she said, I'm just going to lend you my feet from time to time. And throughout the rest of the call, my feet would feel wet. And I'm sure it was the placebo effect, but if the placebo effect isn't magic, I don't know what is. So, and then I got this, she put me onto this book about how magic or apparent miracles have been worked in so many people. And read Cured if you want to be like really buoyed up about what it's like to be stuck in these mortal bodies facing our absolutely inevitable death. So finally, Donna says, is it energy that heals us? How do we tap into the energy and dismiss that shame of that culture imposes on us for this type of belief? That's another wonderful thing about pain. If you're lying there and you say, you know what? I am channeling energy to my toes and I'm imagining light bulbs going on and it's really, really helping my foot recovery. And someone says, that won't work. That's just nonsense. If you're in enough pain, you don't care. You do not care what they think. This is why women who are giving birth often shout profanities and try to kill their husbands. Like at a certain point, when the pain is bad enough, you drop culture and you go to nature. And it can be an incredible liberator for some people. That's what Anita Moorjani, read her latest book. It's called Sensitive is the New Strong. It's about empaths. You'll love it. So many people here are empaths. But what she said is, if she hadn't had that years of pain followed by almost literal death, she would not have had the courage to step away from her culture, which was really confining for her. She was born into this family from India where they really held on to the old ways, arranged marriage and all that. And she didn't like it, but she had to die. She had to be in that much pain so that it killed her before she could drop the culture and come back to her nature. And that was a gift of illness. It was a gift of suffering. And I've always had a hard time living in this body. I've always had a lot of pain. And so as I've come over the past 2 weeks to see what an incredible gift it's been and how thick the magic is around a person who is physically suffering or emotionally suffering, like there is so much. The moment, it's like Rumi says, when you're mute, dumbfounded, lying in a zero circle, unable to say yes or no, then a stretcher comes down from grace to gather us up. That was not a perfect quote, but it's in the neighborhood. So it's when you're most destroyed and you're at your absolute end that you're motivated to use what I have called the technologies of magic, the wonders of using this miraculous machine called the human body and the human brain to go in and heal and to reach out and bring healing. And then it becomes a cycle where the healing goes out into the world from the healed, like Anita, like Jill, like Jeffrey Rediger. It becomes cyclical. The more you heal from suffering, the more suffering draws you into healing the rest of the world. So ultimately, it can be an enormous gift. And I wanted to talk to you all about that because one thing is for sure, we're all going to feel pain at some point. So the next time it happens to you, use a little magic on it and see if the magic and the magical beings come running to help, as Rumi says, and the stretcher from grace comes to gather you up. All right, that's the end of this gathering room. And I love you. I love being back. I hope to be back in my regular post next week and doing Instagram and all the things. But thank you for chiming in, guys. It's so great to see your wonderful little faces in the boxes and see your words. And I will talk to you again next week on The Gathering Room.